presented at IFS, and it was quite a good one. I told you it is going to be a training for you. So a good start. Thank you. Yeah. Increasing importation of rice in Ghana, and the country transform its fortunes in the rice sector. Okay. The structure of the presentation is going to be as follows. You're going to go through introduction, the various government strategies that have been taken to stem rice importation in Ghana since the 1960s. Okay. No, absolutely. We are also going to consider trend and comparative analysis of Ghana's rice imports since 1961. Then the more important question, what are the causes of the growing importation of rice in Ghana in comparison with Vietnam and Thailand, with analysis of government policies? And policy recommendations will follow. So let's begin with introduction. Consumption of rice in Ghana has seen sharp increases over the years, particularly among urban dwellers. But domestic production of rice is only able to meet domestic consumption. This has led to increasing importation of rice since the 1960s, raising serious policy concerns due to its balance of payment, exchange rate, and fuel security implications. Therefore, over the years, the government of Ghana has pursued a number of strategies to stem rice importation. However, data reveal that importation of rice continues to grow, and it has assumed alarming proportions in recent years. The questions, therefore, are: what specific strategies have been pursued over the years to stem rice importation in Ghana? How large is import of rice, and to what extent has it responded to the strategies of the government? What are the causes of the growing importation of rice in Ghana despite the strategies pursued over the years? And can the country transform its fortunes in the rice sector by addressing the factors that limit the sector's performance? These are quite important questions. You know, the main strength of this work is that it draws lessons from two major successful players in the global rice industry, Thailand and Vietnam. You want to compare yourself with the best so that you learn from them. Okay. You know, Thailand and Vietnam are respectively the second and the third highest exporters of rice in the world. And if you want to know, I'm sorry, if you want to know how to fix your rice sector, then you have to learn first. And Vietnam and Thailand are good examples to learn from. This is done by comparing Ghana with these two major players since the early 1960s in terms of, one, the dynamics of rice import, production, and consumption, the factors that have affected these dynamics, government policies that have been pursued to address the fundamental factors affecting the performance of rice sectors in these countries. And the last point is very critical, because as my colleague just demonstrated, the problems are well known. And as we are going to go through, the government knows the issues in the rice sector since the 1960s. But the right strategy to pursue is the issue. And this is what we are going to do. Compare Ghana's strategies with Vietnam and Thailand strategies and see where perhaps we fall short so that we can fix our strategies in the rice sector. This has enabled us, this comparison has enabled us to have a strong empirical understanding of the performance of Ghana's rice sector and the factors that have limited this, resulting in increasing importation of rice. It has also helped us to identify the weaknesses in the government of Ghana's policies towards the sector, and has helped us to gain the knowledge, understanding, and confidence to propose solutions that can help Ghana to positively transform its fortunes in the rice sector. These are bold statements. Let's see what we can do. So now let's begin with the strategies to stem rice importation in Ghana. You know, there are two main periods, which we call the pre-2008 period and post-2008 period. Before 2008, no strategic plans were drawn specifically dedicated to encouraging rice production to limit its importation, although specific projects, usually sponsored by donors, were implemented. Strategies on rice were implicit in policy programs on crops, or at best on cereals. Therefore, to encourage rice production and discourage its importation, challenges facing cereal or crop production in general were to be addressed. To dependence on unpredictable rainfall, poor quality of seeds, limited use of fertilizer, use of poor farming technology, poor access roads, and thus limited access to market in many parts of the country, reliance on the traditional land tenure system, limited availability of credit, storage problems, and post-harvest losses, bushfires. You can see that since the 1960s, the problems my friend encountered when they physically visited the area are known. Why can't we address the issues? We shall know very soon. Now let's come to the post-2008 era. Since 2008, Ghana has implemented strategic plans specifically dedicated to encouraging rice production as a means of addressing importation. Why so? The background is that the 2007 and 2008 food price crisis caused the price of a metric ton of rice to more than triple, from $313.49 in January 2007 to as high as $1,015.21 in April 2008. Africa was hard hit since the continent depended on large and increasing importation of rice for domestic consumption. Therefore, the need to sharply raise domestic production of rice in Africa was realized, both in Africa and beyond. Consequently, Coalition for African Rice Development, CARD, was established and launched in May 2008 during Tokyo International Conference on African Development in Yokohama by the New Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, and Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. This institution came together and formed CARD. Upon its establishment, CARD required member states to prepare national rice development strategies while providing them with facilitation and technical support. Because Ghana was among the first group of 12 African countries that joined CARD in 2008, it began to prepare its national rice development strategy in line with CARD's vision of doubling rice production in Africa from 2008 to 2018. By February 2009, Ghana had finished drafting the strategic document on rice, now termed National Rice Development Strategy 1, 2008 to 2018. The goal of National Rice Development Strategy 1 was to contribute to national food security, increase income, and reduce poverty towards the attainment of self-sufficiency from sustainable rice production. And the objectives were increase domestic production of rice by 10% yearly over the 10-year period, promote consumption of locally produced rice by improving quality, promote innovation capacity of stakeholders for the utilization of rice byproducts. According to the government, in preparing Rice Development Strategy 1, it took into consideration the following major constraints facing the rice sector. Again, land development and land tenure arrangements, the poor seed system, limited fertilizer use, inadequate human resources capacity, inadequate harvesting and post-harvest management technology, weak local rice market system, the role of the government in related agencies. Again, you can see that the problems are known. Therefore, National Rice Development Strategy 1 devised strategies to address these constraints and challenges. Let's move to National Rice Development Strategy 2. Having achieved estimated 93.2% of its goal by increasing rice production in Africa from 14.0 million metric tons in 2008 to estimated 26.1 million metric tons in 2018, GHOne approved a second phase from 2019 to 2030. The vision of GHOne, again, is to double rice production in Africa to 56 million metric tons by the end of phase 2. Ghana had to, again, prepare a second National Rice Development Strategy, NRDS2, 2019 to 2030, which was completed in December 2021. The challenges identified by NRDS2 as facing the rice sector are similar to those identified by NRDS1, although NRDS2 had more elaborate strategies to address them. So again, the challenges are known, the problems are known. The goal of National Rice Development Strategy 2 was the same as that of NRDS1 as stated earlier. However, the objectives of National Rice Development Strategy 2 differed in certain ways. For instance, the Strategy 2 had 7 objectives instead of 3 that we saw earlier, and it aims at increasing domestic rice production by 20% annually instead of 10% that we saw earlier. In line with these goals, objectives, and strategies, National Rice Development Strategy 2 has projected to increase domestic production of milled rice from 638,000 metric tons in 2019 to about 1.8 million tons in 2024, and further to 2.5 million metric tons in 2030. How obtainable are these? Of course, you realize that I checked the numbers. We do not have data for 2024. We have data for 2023, and Ghana was able to achieve 921,000 metric tons in terms of milled rice production in 2023. Definitely, we cannot achieve around 1.8 million metric tons in 2024. Of course, self-sufficiency in rice was projected to be achieved in 2024. Given the fact that you cannot achieve this projection, in 2024, you all lived in this country. We are definitely not self-sufficient in rice production. So, National Rice Development Strategy 2 called for the setting up of an interministerial government body called National Rice Coordinating Council. So that is it. Let's move to trend and comparative analysis. The trend analysis is going to talk about how importation of rice has developed over the years, and the comparative analysis will be in relation to Vietnam and Thailand story. Despite A, the long recognition of the balance of payments, exchange rate, and food security implications, and B, the various policy efforts made to stem it, as discussed, importation of rice continues to increase in Ghana, as demonstrated below. See, the curving line is year-by-year importation of rice, and the straight line is the trend. You can see that there's an upward and sharp increasing trend from 1961 to 2022. This means that despite the various strategies, either pre or post 2008 pursued, rice importation continues to grow, particularly in recent years. And as shown by this table, is similar to the trend analysis. Rice importation in every period has been increasing except 1970 to 1979, which dropped. Why? Because of the Operation Feed Yourself program of the SMC government. Other than that, you can see it increased from 33,000 in 61 to 69 to 51,080 to 89, 2008 to 2018, whereby Rice Development Strategy 1 was implemented, it increased to 68,000 on average. And it further increased 2009 to 2022, 2019 to 2022 to 911,000 metric tons. So despite all these strategies, importation of rice continues to grow on average, with the exception of the SMC era. Even in per capita terms, because one may argue that it is population growth that is driving it. But even in per capita terms, that's accounting for population growth, rice import in Ghana continues to have a sharp increasing trend. If you see this diagram, it's akin to the previous diagram you saw. And in per capita terms, it is exhibiting the same form. Per capita terms, period by period, is exhibiting the same behavior. So population growth is not what is driving it. Fundamentally, something somewhere, perhaps taste for rice consumption is increasing. The country is becoming urbanized, and per capita income is increasing. There's a shift from certain foods to other food. So that is what is driving it fundamentally. Now let's carry out comparative analysis. How does import of rice in Ghana compare with those in Vietnam and Thailand, the two countries we have selected for our case study? Figure 3.A shows Thailand rice import, Ghana's rice import. The red line is Ghana. Thailand one is blue. You can see that even though Thailand imports rice, it is insignificant. Initially, Ghana was imported, but of late, importation of rice is increasing, despite the policies pursued. What is more interesting is the second graph over there. From 1961 to somewhere 1989, Vietnam was a huge importer of rice, the blue line. Importing large quantities of rice for domestic consumption. Ghana was also importing, but compared to Thailand, Ghana was nowhere close. But Vietnam has achieved a dramatic turnaround. Starting from 1989, Vietnam is virtually importing nothing, but has been able to now, but Ghana is not only importing as before, not only importing, but the rate of importation has increased in Ghana. Except somewhere from 2021 coming, you can see the blue line has shifted up. This is not because Vietnam is not doing well in the rice sector. It is because taste in Vietnam has changed. So Vietnamese farmers are now shifting to the production of aromatic rice for exportation. But there continues to be a strong demand for their local rice. They continue to have strong demand for their local rice. They don't want to, switch to aromatic rice. So a strong demand, whereby farmers are producing to export, now they have to import low quality rice. So it is the low quality rice that is making Vietnam from 2022 behave as if it is importing so much. But you see net exports. Importing large quantities of a commodity by a country is not the final issue, as the same commodity could also be exported even in larger quantities. What matters most is where net export, that's exports minus imports, of that commodity stands. If you come to Ghana, the first graph is Ghana. Net exports, export minus import. To begin with, Ghana also exports rice. For instance, in 2022, it's exported rice to about 13 countries. Ivory Coast, Togo, Saudi Arabia, even the United States of America, UK, and others. But compared to imports, the exports are virtually nothing. So net export is completely negative, starting from the 1961. And again, in recent years, net export, that's export minus import, has been growing. The negativity has been increasing at very fast pace. On the other hand, Thailand is the blue line, Vietnam is the red line. Net exports have been growing. But if you look at Vietnam, the red line, from 1961 to 1989 again, it was a net importer of rice. You can see that it was negative. But starting from 1989, Vietnam has been able to transform its rice sector, and it is a big net exporter of rice, becoming the third biggest exporter of rice in the world. Why is that they were able to achieve such a transformation, but we have not been able to? Whereby even net export is even increasing at a faster pace than before. We are going to understand that. So what are the causes of the continuous growth in rice import in Ghana? When Vietnam, for example, which was in the same predicament as Ghana, regarding rice import, has been able to achieve a dramatic transformation in the rice sector, thereby becoming the third biggest importer of rice in the world today. Two main forces are at play when it comes to the increased importation of rice in Ghana. Let's keep this in mind because we are going to elaborate this point. Domestic rice production limitations and unmet demand by locally produced rice. To begin with, consumption of rice in Ghana is growing at a fast pace. As pointed out in the introduction, instead of this phenomenon serving as an incentive to boost domestic rice production, production of rice in Ghana continues to fall far short of consumption. Therefore, the increasing trend in rice import in Ghana is mainly caused by the increasing gap between domestic consumption and domestic production as depicted below. And the imports fill the gap. This is no brainer, but it is the beginning to understand the main issue. You are consuming more, but production cannot meet. So clearly it depicts domestic production limitation. Figures 5B and 5C depict how consumption and production of rice compare in Thailand and Vietnam and why they are currently large net exporters of rice. The first one is, Thailand. It has always been producing more than consuming, so the rest is exported. Again, Vietnam was a net importer because they were consuming more than producing from 1961 to 1989. But there's a very big turnaround, now producing more than consuming. So if Vietnam can transform, why can't Ghana transform? We are going to see what is going on. The question now is, how come Thailand and Vietnam are able to produce more rice than they domestically consume, making them become large net exporters of rice, but Ghana is unable to achieve the same feat regarding rice production? This question will be addressed at two levels, at the basic level and at a more fundamental level. So we have a lot to go through. Let's pay greater attention. It should first be noted that quantity of rice produced is the product of the yield or productivity of rice in the area of land harvested. It's no brainer. The yield, productivity, and amount of hectares dedicated to rice production. If you multiply them, you get quantity produced. Ghana is unable to produce enough rice to meet domestic consumption because both the yield and the area harvested have been comparatively very low. Still, it is the beginning, but let's understand these things before you go ahead to explain it deeper. The first session is Ghana, second session is Thailand, the third session is Vietnam. Let's take the yield. Ghana yield, the first session, 1.1. Then the best you have been able to do is 3.3. In fact, apart from 2019 to 2022, Ghana yield is the lowest among the three countries. But it has caught up with, Thailand in terms of yield. But look at Vietnam, the last session. They were harvesting 1.9 metric tons of rice per hectare. But now, on average, in 2019 to 2022, it is 6.0. That is average. So, in terms of yield, Ghana is performing so poorly, except when compared to Thailand in the latest period. But what is even amazing is that areas of land directed towards rice cultivation is so insignificant in Ghana. So it is not that Ghana's yield is low. We cannot allocate enough land for rice cultivation. 37,000 hectares devoted to rice cultivation on average in 1961. It has increased to 327,750. One could argue that, it is large. It has increased drastically. However, compared to Thailand and Vietnam, Thailand allocates around 6.6 billion. Now it is about 10.8 million hectares to rice production. Vietnam allocating from 1.8 million to around now 7.6 million in 2008 to 2018. So these are millions. But Ghana, it is now that we have been able to achieve 327,000. So in addition to the low yield, we are unable to allocate enough land for rice cultivation. And there is a reason for all these things, which we are going to explain. Something I think might have cropped up in somebody's mind, that Thailand and Vietnam are able to devote larger areas for land to rice cultivation than Ghana, because perhaps both of these countries have vast agricultural land compared to Ghana. Is that the case? The answer is no. Again, Ghana, Thailand, Vietnam. Thailand has more agricultural land than Ghana, but Ghana has more agricultural land than Vietnam. What is happening is that Ghana is devoting from only 0.3% to 2.6% of agricultural land to rice farming. That's why the fact that we are calling for increased production, this is the percentage of agricultural land we are devoting to rice farming. But look at Thailand, 51%, 40-something percent. Look at Vietnam, 70, 83%. So when they want to increase rice production, they allocate more land towards rice production. We have been talking various, programs. You want to produce rice. You are doing somewhat good in terms of yield, but you don't have land. Is it that we don't have land? Agricultural land is available, but we are unable to allocate towards rice production. So are you merely doing talking the talk, not walking the walk? So the fundamental question now is, why is it that Ghana's rice yield is so low comparatively, while at the same time the country is unable to devote considerable share of its agricultural land for rice production, leading to such a low domestic rice production? Now, since of the two rice giants, It is Vietnam that has performed better with respect to rice yield. You shall compare Ghana's situation with that of Vietnam when answering the question about the causes of the low rice yield in Ghana. However, when answering the question about the causes of the inability of Ghana to allocate enough agricultural land for rice production, you shall compare Ghana's situation with the situations in both countries. You have some distance to travel. Let's pay greater attention because we want to understand fully what is going on. I said, you know the problems and challenges. So we are going to say causes of the low rice yield in Ghana compared with Vietnam. The first thing is lower fertilizer use. Is it something that policy makers do not know? They do. But we are going to understand that how they approach the issue. How they are going to approach this challenge is the issue. Fertilizer use is widely understood to play a significant role in determining rice yield per hectare of land. Relative to Vietnam, fertilizer use in Ghana for rice cultivation is way too low, which is a major cause of the comparatively low rice yield in Ghana. Ghana, Vietnam, let's look at the numbers. From 0.8 to 42 kilograms per hectare of arable land. In Vietnam, from 20.2 to as much as 450.4 kilograms per hectare of arable land. That is differences in chemical fertilizer use. It looks like Ghana is somewhat joking. Are we not? So the question, the more important, which is more fundamental, is why are Vietnamese rice farmers able to have access to large quantity of fertilizers for their farming activities, but Ghanaian rice farmers are unable to do so? It's more fundamental question that IFS is asking. Oh, the reason is over 70% of fertilizer currently used in Vietnam is produced domestically by mostly state-owned enterprises using subsidized import. This makes fertilizer readily available to rice farmers and at a comparatively low prices. As at 2021, for instance, there were more than 800 chemical fertilizer plants in Vietnam, which produced 7.92 million tons of fertilizer. Let's go to Ghana. Unlike Vietnam, Ghana does not produce any chemical fertilizer domestically. All chemical fertilizers used in Ghana are imported, making prices of fertilizer quite large, quite high. Even though the government of Ghana distributes imported fertilizer to rice and other farmers at subsidized prices, the quantity involved is way below what rice farmers need, as my colleague just said. Additionally, the government fertilizer distribution program is reported to be embroiled in corruption and politicization. So we can't solve the fertilizer issue, the corruption and fertilization, without trying to subsidize fertilizer production. And in Vietnam, it is even SOEs. They mean business. We should also mean business. Another challenge is also known, but how does the government of Ghana approach it? Let's see. The use of high quality rice seed in terms of high disease and pest resistance, high drought resistance, high level of varietal and genetic purity, low moisture content, high rate of germination, etc., is critical for ensuring high rice yield. Due to this, governments usually establish seed research institutions to ensure that high yielding seeds are developed. Also, to ensure that it is high quality / yielding seeds that are used by farmers for planting, governments normally put in place quality assurance and certification systems for seeds. Therefore, like other crops, the level of use of certified rice seed by farmers in a country is an important determinant of rice yield in that country. Therefore, another reason for low rice seed in Ghana compared with Vietnam is that only 3% of the total cultivated rice lands in Ghana is supplied with certified rice seed from the former seed sector. However, in Vietnam, over 80% of rice seeds currently cultivated are certified ones. Of course, you are going to understand why it is so. In Ghana, before 1990, the seed industry was dominated by the public sector. However, as part of the structural adjustment program that our chairman pointed to, the private sector was made to take over the production and marketing aspect of the country's seed industry. The government of Ghana was made to concentrate on the creation of the enabling environment and provision of support services for the seed industry. Consequently, the Ghana Seed Company, which was established in 1979 and which had been tasked to produce and market seeds to farmers, was disbanded in September 1989. The reliance on the privatization option is the main cause of the failure of Ghana's seed industry. I am not the one saying this. The government itself is saying it. The government itself says in the National Seed Policy 2013 as follows, and I quote, "As part of actions under the Economic Recovery Program, the government of Ghana adopted the privatization option and dissolved the Ghana Seed Company in September 1989, paving the way for a new Ghana Seed Program in which the private sector will take over the commercial components of the seed industry, while the public sector will continue its responsibility for the activities having a service nature. It was expected that the private sector would usher in a period of efficient, widespread, and profitable seed program, theoretically, but in practice, the realization of that goal has been slow, the government says. Today, less than 5% of Ghanaian farmers are able to access certified seeds, generally not rice alone, certified seeds from approved sources. Increasingly, farmers are sliding back to the age-old practice of on-farm seed saving, as he said when he presenting, a practice which has a potential of reducing farm productivity across the country and reversing the food security gains made in the past. Unquote. This is what the government is saying, the privatization option following the SAP is killing the seed industry. In Vietnam, although the government of Vietnam has allowed private sector participation in the rice seed industry since 1986, unlike Ghana, public sector entities, Vietnam's National Seed Company and provisional seed companies are actively involved in the production, distribution, and marketing of rice seeds to farmers. This has ensured that rice farmers in Vietnam are able to have easy access to certified rice seed with fast improving quality, leading to the high yield we have just observed. The involvement of state entities in the production and marketing of rice seeds and application of subsidies have also made prices of certified rice seeds affordable to rice farmers in Vietnam. Let's go to another issue that is known, but we are not approaching it appropriately. Limited availability of irrigation facilities for rice farmers in Ghana. The failure of seasonal rains to fall on time and expected volume implies the failure of rice farms, leading to low yields, as rice is a very water-intensive crop. Widespread availability of irrigation facilities is therefore crucial to ensure high yield. Despite having irrigable land potential of 1.9 million hectares, irrigation development in Ghana is very low. And it is shown in the following table. In fact, 2016 records the highest from 2015 to 2021. only 5.1% of arable land is irrigated in Ghana. 228,792 hectares of arable land is irrigated out of 4,506,874. That is the highest, so there's no point talking about the rest. Ghana has 3 ecologies for rice farming: rain-fed lowland, rain-fed upland, and irrigated ecology. Because of the poor nature of irrigation development, irrigated ecology covers only about 10% of total cultivated rice area, despite irrigated ecology having the highest rice yield in Ghana. So if you can apply, you can irrigate more, the yield will go up. According to the government itself, irrigated ecology has the highest rice yield, but you don't have the irrigation facilities. Those you have in the Volta region are breaking down according to those whom you sent to actually observe what is going on there. In contrast, over the years, the government of Vietnam has paid a great deal of attention to irrigation development. In fact, as high as 65.8% of the total arable land in Vietnam is equipped with irrigation system. The highest in Ghana recent years is 5.1. 65.8% is equipped with irrigation system. Therefore, in Vietnam, rice is mostly cultivated in irrigated areas. For instance, of the total rice area cultivated in Vietnam in 2016, as high as 89.5%, virtually 90%, was in actively irrigated area. In Ghana, it's 10%, it's 89.5%, and you know what irrigation does for rice yield. Also, although the fee charged for using its irrigation facilities was already low, the Vietnamese government has waived irrigation fees for rice farmers since 2008. Use free water to irrigate their rice. They mean business. That's why they've been able to transform since 1989. We've been talking about trying to reduce importation. What are we doing to change it? This is a major reason why, compared with Ghana, rice yield is very high in Vietnam. Let's consider the second challenge, limiting rice production. There are many, but we have selected 4 for this presentation because the problem is repetitive. A trend is noticed. Lower degree of mechanization of rice farming operations in Ghana. Mechanization of rice farming operation has a strong positive impact on rice yield, as machines work with greater efficiency and precision on the rice fields. In Ghana, mechanization of rice farming activities is limited, leading to the low rice yield. For instance, Ama and Abuaji find that out of 143 rice producing districts in Ghana, as high as 67% is classified as being at low level in terms of mechanization, as these rice farms use basic farming tools such as cutlass, hoe, and sickle. 67%. Only 6% could be classified as being at advanced level with adequate access to modern farm equipment and machinery like power tillers, tractors, combine harvesters, etc. In contrast, always in contrast, in a study on rice production in the Mekong Delta region of Vietnam, where about 55% of rice production in Vietnam takes place, it was found that major working processes for rice cultivation, including land preparation, fertilizer application, chemical application, and harvesting, have been mechanized. Power tillers or tractors cover land preparation work almost 100%. Also, 99.4% and 99.0% of farmers in the region use combined harvesters during winter and spring and summer autumn cropping seasons, respectively. It's a huge gap, leading to high yield and Ghana low yield. We're still going to consider policy. So why is this so? Mechanization of rice farming operations in Ghana is very low due mostly to mechanization policy instability. After independence, the state took an active role in the provision of mechanization services, focusing mostly on land preparation, using state-run tractor hiring schemes. For instance, in a period of 3 years, the number of tractors in Ghana more than doubled from 1,000 in 1961 to 2,234 in 1964, causing the number of tractors per 100 kilometers of arable land to increase from 5.9 in 1961 to 13.1 in 1964. However, again, due to the structural adjustment program, the mechanization process was left in the hands of the private sector, leading to a big failure, and the government itself recognizes it. I decided not to quote for lack of space here, even though in the paper the quote is there. In 2007, the government saw that there was a failure trying to come back. The government began an indirect form, not even direct form, of intervention in the mechanization process by supporting the establishment of private sector operated agricultural mechanization service centers, AMSECs, which offer tractor hiring service to small scale farmers. That is Ghana. Again, in Vietnam, however, the government has continuously played an active role in the farm mechanization process. Although the Vietnamese government allowed private sector participation in the mechanization process starting from the late 1980s, unlike Ghana, the private sector was not made to complement. Unlike Ghana, the private sector was made to complement the government's effort and not to replace it. Therefore, at present, state-owned enterprises, and I quote, state-owned enterprises such as Vietnam Engine and Agricultural Machinery and its subsidiaries are the major providers of agricultural machines with a total production capacity of 5,500 tractors per year. It is no wonder, therefore, that in 2005, when there were only 1,807 tractors in Ghana, according to World Bank's World Development Indicators, there were as many as 310,000 tractors in Vietnam. If you pick up the challenge, they will continue. So, you're going to consider land issues. So, causes of the inability of Ghana to allocate considerable portion of its agricultural land for rice cultivation compared with Thailand and Vietnam. Background. Ghana has over 4 million hectares of unexploited lowlands which can be exploited for massive rainfall lowland rice farming, according to JICA studies, which was sponsored by the government of Ghana in 2008. It's not that you don't have the land. It was also pointed out above that irrigation development potential of Ghana is about 1.9 million hectares. Adding these two numbers together, we get 5.9 million hectares of land that can be used for rice farming in Ghana. What then explains the inability of Ghana to allocate considerable portion of its agricultural land for rice cultivation? The largely unreformed traditional land tenure system in Ghana is the main cause. In this system, in the traditional land tenure system, land is owned communally along tribal, clan, or family lines. While farmers who are members of the land-owning group have access to their tracts of land, it is difficult for farmers who are outside the group to have such an access. The system is also often characterized by conflicting claims to ownership, which affect access to land. It is also unfair and frustrating to many farmers, since rent extracted from them by landlords who are normally chiefs or clan or family heads are usually very high. My colleague highlighted this. You want land to farm, you are struggling. Again, however, in Thailand, land tenure reform through land redistribution have been vigorously pursued by the government of Thailand. We have not reformed ours. You are all complaining about our land tenure system. They mean business. In Thailand, they are reforming theirs. For instance, from 1975 to 2012, parcels of land with registered titles representing 5.44 million hectares were allocated by the Agricultural Land Reform Office of Thailand to 2.4 million farmers. In fact, it is part of the directive principle of state policy in Thailand's constitution to redistribute land in a fair manner to enable farmers to have ownership rights in land for farming purposes through land reforms. In Vietnam, land is conceived to be for the benefit of all the people, with the government of Vietnam serving as the overseer and administrator of the country's land resources on behalf of the people. Therefore, it has been the responsibility of the government of Vietnam to ensure that all farmers, especially rice farmers, have access to land for their farming activities. For instance, on April 9, 2016, the government of Vietnam announced a decision to maintain at least 3,763,390 hectares of land for rice cultivation, to reserve it for rice cultivation. They mean business. Here, farmers want land, and they can't have access. It is therefore these land reforms and deliberate decision by the government of Thailand and Vietnam to ensure that farmers have access to land that have led to the comparatively large hectares of land allocated for rice cultivation in the two countries. Before you go to the recommendations very soon, we said the reason why there's so much importation in Ghana and it is increasing is production limitations we have gone through. Now, unmet demand by locally produced rice is the other side. This is no-brainer. You're not going to spend so much time on it. Unmet demand by locally produced rice is another factor that is fueling importation of rice in Ghana. Why is this so? A large section of consumers of rice in Ghana, especially urban dwellers, have taste for what they consider to be imported high-quality aromatic rice. It is estimated that only about 20% of domestically produced rice is consumed by urban consumers of rice in Ghana. Therefore, irrespective of the extent to which domestic production of rice may increase in Ghana, as far as this kind of demand for rice is not met by domestic producers, there will continue to be significant importation of rice in Ghana. So that is another perspective to look to understand the importation of rice. Now let's go to the recommendations. All these talks are meaningless if you are unable to recommend to the government of Ghana what they should do based on the lessons you have learned from the comparison. Again, Ghana has all what it takes for a very successful rice sector. It has an abundant supply of labor that can be mobilized for massive rice farming. Now, if Ghana is able to achieve rice yield of 6.0 metric tons of paddy rice per hectare of rice, like the average achieved by Vietnam in 2019 to 2022, by following the recommendation we provide below, and if Ghana is able to use the estimated 5.9 million hectares of land for rice cultivation, it will be able to produce 35.4 million metric tons of paddy rice annually. This is 34.12 million metric tons, or 2,665.6% more than the mere 1.28 million metric tons of paddy rice the country produced in 2022. This estimated production volume of Ghana, if achieved, will be comparable to what Thailand and Vietnam currently produce. And given the pattern of rice consumption in Ghana, this scale of production will make Ghana become a major net exporter of rice. In fact, given Ghana's level of rice consumption, which is much smaller than what prevails in Vietnam and Thailand, it does not even have to produce this scale of rice output before it becomes a major exporter of rice. For instance, given the level of consumption, import, and stocks of rice in Ghana in 2022, if Ghana had produced a mere 7.4 million metric tons of milled rice in 2022, it would have exported 6.6 million metric tons of milled rice in that year. Interestingly, 6.6 million metric tons of milled rice is how much Vietnam exported to earn 3.2 billion in 2022, having produced as much as 26.7 million. They consume a lot. They produced 26.7 million metric tons in 2022, but they only exported 6 million metric tons to earn 3.2 billion, making them become the third biggest exporter. We don't consume that much. If we had even produced mere 7.4 million, we have been able to export the same 6.26 million metric tons. And we saw that you have the land, you have the labor, you have everything. The government of Ghana should therefore set a more ambitious goal of Ghana becoming a major net exporter of rice in the medium term. In Rice Development Strategy 1, we saw that the government goal is to meet food security and others. That's local. The card goal, that coalition of African rice development that has been formed in Africa, the goal was to double rice production from 2008 to 2018. The question I asked, which I haven't shown here, is what was the economic or even political reason for doubling rice production in Africa? You double rice production in Africa, and currently they have also decided to double rice production. What are you intending to achieve? Ghana, for instance, in phase 1 was almost tripled rice production, but imports continue to increase. If doubling rice is your goal, why are you trying to double it? The first day, Ghana had almost tripled rice production, but import increased. So I think we have to set a more ambitious goal of Ghana becoming a major net exporter of rice. You have everything. 2, set up Rice Development Board as the means to ensure active government intervention in the rice sector to transform the sector. We have seen from the analysis so far that the policy of the government of Ghana to rely on the private sector has resulted in a huge market failures in the sector, causing the actual rice production in Ghana to represent only a small fraction of what the sector can potentially deliver. To correct this failure and achieve great results like Vietnam and Thailand, and thus transform the country's fortunes in the rice sector, the government of Ghana should actively get involved in the sector. However, because of new governments' penchant for discontinuing policies started by previous government, when these policies are not legally and institutionally entrenched, we recommend that the government of Ghana should formally establish Rice Development Board, formally established. An agency through which active intervention of the government in the rice sector should be channeled. Rice Development Board should handle all government interventions in rice sector covering production, harvesting, milling, and storage of rice. Therefore, it should be equipped financially and technically in such a way that it can handle government interventions pertaining to the provision of certified and quality rice seeds to rice farmers, provision of adequate fertilizer to rice farmers, provision of adequate irrigation facilities for rice farming, mechanization of rice farming operation, provision of adequate access to land for rice farming, etc. Rice Development Board should draw lessons from intervention experiences of governments of Vietnam and Thailand and other major rice producing countries in the developing world. On the issue of fertilizer, for instance, the government, through Rice Development Board, should directly set up factories that produce adequate chemical fertilizer locally to serve rice farmers' needs at affordable prices. The government should also provide tax incentives and input subsidies to encourage private sector firms to locally produce fertilizer to save farmers, including rice farmers, at affordable prices. Rice Development Board should get actively involved in the distribution and marketing of the produced fertilizers to farmers, using offices it ought to set up in every rice producing district of the country. On the issue of the use of certified and high-yielding rice seed, the government of Ghana, through Rice Development Board, should go beyond the provision of funding for rice research and development by getting actively involved in the production, distribution, and marketing of certified high-yielding rice seed to rice farmers. On the issue of the provision of irrigation facilities for rice farmers, the Rice Development Board, with adequate financing, should work with the Ghana Irrigation Development Authority to develop adequate irrigation facilities on the estimated 1.9 million hectares of land identified to be suitable for irrigated rice farming. And on mechanization of rice farming operations, Rice Development Board should concern itself with the mechanization of the entire operational process of rice farming and not just land preparation. In addition to providing tax incentives and subsidies for importation of new and used machines for rice farming, the government, through Rice Development Board, should set up entities to manufacture rice farming machines locally, making sure that they are designed to be more suitable for the local environment. Alternatively, Rice Development Board may partner with private sector firms like Kantanka Automobile to manufacture the machines. Number 3, continue to provide incentives and the enabling environment to the private sector actors in the locally produced rice sector. We are not saying the government should do everything. The private sector is, in fact, also critical. The government of Ghana should continue to provide incentives and the enabling environment to the private sector actors in the locally produced rice sector. However, unlike the existing situation whereby the private sector has been made to largely take over the government's role in the rice sector and has been made to substitute for the government, which has led to the market failure, as pointed out earlier, the private sector should now be seen and treated as complementary to the government's effort in the sector. This is the kind of arrangements that exist in rice sector of Vietnam and Thailand, which have worked so well for them. 4, provide adequate access to land for rice farming through land purchase and redistribution. We understood earlier that Ghana's traditional land tenure system makes many rice farmers unable to have easy access to land. You also understood that this is making Ghana unable to devote considerable hectares of land for rice farming, which is heavily limiting the quantity of rice that can be produced in the country, thereby immensely contributing to the increasing importation of rice. To solve this problem, the government of Ghana should acquire large tracts of land suitable for rice farming by paying fair compensation to the current holders and treating them as public lands. These tracts of land should be redistributed to people interested in rice farming through renting and leasing at affordable prices. We are left with these 2. Mobilize the youth for rice farming. To be able to massively expand rice production in Ghana and turn Ghana into a major net exporter of rice, as recommended above, the government should massively mobilize the youth into rice farming, as IFS recommended in its policy brief number 22. This should be done on team basis by providing them with seed money, that's capital, on credit with no regard to political party affiliation. This has been a challenge. Whenever an initiative like that takes place, becomes party football. Number 6, directly produce, distribute, and market aromatic rice seed for cultivation to substitute for imported aromatic rice. In addition to high-yielding rice seed, Rice Development Board should also make sure that it directly produces, distributes, and markets high-quality aromatic rice seeds to farmers for cultivation as a means of substituting for imported aromatic rice. If locally developed aromatic rice does not serve as a perfect substitute for imported aromatic rice, the relevant seeds can be imported by Rice Development Board and marketed to rice farmers for cultivation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Boachi. This has been a deep and lengthy one, passionately delivered. Our stakeholders are itching to speak. Some people may have questions to ask, and we are at that stage now. Mr. Chairman, of course, yeah, so our stakeholders are itching to speak. Mr. Chairman, before I call upon you to lead us into this segment, I am informed our ambassador, Her Excellency Madeira, has a few thoughts to share with us. So, can you bring a microphone?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the presentation. It was very, thought-provoking. So I have a few comments on what was shown. First of all, Brazil is the 9th rice-producing country. We were doing better, but we're still a big player. We are among the 10. And we have a lot of experience to share. Brazil is known for its reputation in agriculture, of being an agricultural power. And we are here in Ghana producing local rice. I don't know if you know. There is a farm in Sogakope that is one of the biggest, Brazil Agrobusiness. And I am in touch with the director. She has a lot of experience. She knows, so we've been in touch. And she can also share a lot of the challenges of producing rice in Ghana. Having said that, of course, I am not here to disagree with what was presented. I think all of the challenges, the fertilizer, all the inputs are foreign. So of course, the cost of producing locally is very high, and actually, as we know, much higher than importing the rice. And that's the main issue. I don't think, Ghana will be able to cut the import of rice at the risk of impacting food security at a very high level. So this will be a gradual process, as we know. Having said that, I think that our experience was to invest in big farming. And so, of course, farmers do a great job, and they need to integrate among them and also integrate with the bigger players so that this can build a synergy to increase the production of rice. And one of the problems that was pinpointed, I think, in the first presentation was the marketing. Because of the price of local production and the power of the importers, together with the national strategy to increase rice production, you have to keep an eye on tariffs, on the importers. Otherwise, you're going to have enough rice, but if imported rice is still cheaper, why would Malcolm and the other supermarkets buy locally. You know? So this is something that needs to be tackled, and it implies political will, of course, from the government. So I think that there needs to be a push and pressure on that direction. You know, and just like in other sectors that we know, for instance, with cashew that's produced locally, but it's not processed so much, and now is at a bottleneck because farmers prefer to sell to foreign buyers instead of leaving the cashew here. So those are issues that have to be addressed, have to do with foreign trade, you know. And yes, let me see if I have something else to add. To, of course, strengthen the local product. So together with the National Rice Development Strategy, there needs to be an eye to international trade. How is the international trade going in that sector? Because the other players are still going to play hard and they don't want to lose the market. There are many people benefiting from the buying of this rice that comes from so far away, you know. So, of course, and also like Brazil had a project on stock. That's another thing that was also presented here in the first presentation, how we're going to stock the rice. Yeah, so I wish you all the best. Thank you for the invitation. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madame Mariana Gonzalez Madeira. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you very much. Yes, I'll call now the CEO of the National Buffer Stock Company. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Abredotu is my name, and as I said, I'm the CEO of the National Food Buffer Stock Company. I'm very happy to be here this morning to sit through this wonderful presentations that we've had. But one question I want to ask the organizers is why they did not invite the Minister of Agriculture? The Minister of Agriculture should have been here with us to listen to this wonderful presentation that was done by Dr. Boakye. And I'm so happy, especially this idea about Rice Development Board. I used to be the managing director of PMMC during President Mohammed's first term, and I'm now at National Buffer Stock. And this idea about, I'm sure you've all heard about Gold Board, and a similar idea for agriculture, especially in the rice development area, would have been a fair deal. But I don't know how to put it. When I read about the quantity of rice that is imported into this country, it's very, very serious. We have to do something about it. And as the CEO, I get these Lebanese, Indians, etc., coming to my office all the time to tell me. One person came and said he had 200,000 bags of rice in his warehouse at Tema. I looked at this man and asked him, so if we take this 200,000 bags of rice off you, what is going to happen to our local farmers? Just tell me. Why? You've come here to destroy our agriculture or what? So please, but I know the government, I'm saying the minister should have been here because I know there are one or two interventions that are going on in the agri sector. Because I'm aware some companies are knocking on the doors of the government. One company came purporting to cultivate about 10,000 hectares of rice in the north under irrigation. I think it's a good idea. These are the sort of things that we should encourage to discourage the importation of rice. It's becoming too much. I'm sure the same type of rice that they are importing into this country can be produced by our local farmers. And I'm sure if you've been watching TV these days, you see farmers crying on TV, calling upon buffer stock to come and take their rice because there's overproduction of local rice. The prices have gone down. I saw some farmers saying 1 bag. They were selling 1 bag for 160 Ghana cedis and was asking what buffer stock was doing. I approached the government, asked for a minimum of 700 million Ghana cedis to help us go to these areas because it's one of our mandates to go to the local producing areas to take the rice off them, store in our warehouses, and then at least guarantee some minimum price for the farmers. We asked for a minimum of 700 million. Can you imagine? I was given only 100. And that's like a drop in the ocean. Even the 700 million was nothing. But that was what they get. But it's a good beginning because it hasn't been done before. For about some years now, nobody has been able to help our local farmers by mopping up the excess produce and putting them in our warehouses. We have warehouses all over the country, including the one district, one warehouse. Most of them were not completed. We've taken it upon ourselves to make sure we get some funding to complete them. So going forward, we can do justice to our farmers. And I'm happy to announce that I had a meeting with the World Food Program. They agreed to take some of our warehouses in the north, Tamale and the Yendi, and to repair them, modernize them for us as a storage facility. And you know, buffer store, we also keep grains on behalf of ECOWAS. You know, ECOWAS, Ghana has the contract to keep grains on behalf of ECOWAS. What they do is they bring their grains here, and then we keep it for them. In case of any emergency or something, they direct us, and then we push it them. It used to be in Burkina Faso, but because Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali opted out of ECOWAS, they didn't see why they should keep their grains there since they are not part of us, and they decided to come to Ghana for us to do to keep it on their behalf. So that's my comment that I want to make, Dr. Boachi. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and I think there's a lot that I'll take to the minister too. So thank you very much. Right.
Thank you very much. Our MC has just stepped out. Where we have gotten to is that of the questions and answers. So, yeah. So we want to pick questions, and we want to pick 5 questions at a go. Then we'll go for the next round.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Contributions, questions. Sure. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Anthony Morrison. I'm the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana.
Okay, I know you from TV.
So thank you. I also chair the Ghana Agriculture Sector Skills Council of TVET Commission. That wonderful exercise. I think we need more of this. You spoke on broad range of issues. One of the issues that I was expecting to see was the quality of fertilizers. And I'll urge you to do some research into the quality of fertilizers which our farmers are using in the country, and see why, though we have increased in terms of the uptake and adoption of fertilizers, there is still low productivity. So it's not only on the seeds and the land preparation. You've also spoken about the financial area, but you jumped over it. One of the things we need to look at as a country is the financial regime for agriculture purposes. The countries you've mentioned, Vietnam, Thailand, what is the interest rate on agriculture credit? I wish the ambassador was there. I just returned from Brazil myself. where I undertake a 1-month study in the tropical agriculture. Rabobank, Banco, Santander, all of them, they do between 30 to 50% directly to agriculture. And it takes less than 2 weeks to access credit. And because they run a very strong cooperative system, interest rate is minimal. Very, very, very low. In Ghana, how long does it take a farmer to access a credit? And I don't want to talk about the interest rate. So we need to look at that. I would have wished to see a strong comparison between the skill sets of the Vietnamese and the Thailand farmers as compared to that of Ghana. As a skills person in the agriculture sector myself, if you take the 2018-2019 agriculture census, it shows clearly that farmers in Ghana still use rudimentary technologies, which you alluded to, compared to what the Vietnamese are using. And when it comes to education, we still have over 70% of our farmers either uneducated and unable to adopt new technologies and also hybrid skills. So in terms of the competitive advantages, we need to look at it. And that's why I agree with you on your conclusion that we need to provide an enabling environment for the youth to go into agriculture. And that is where we need to start. But the pricing issue, and it has to be clear here, the cost of production in Ghana is way up. We are uncompetitive, and that is why on the market, the consumer preference still preferred the foreign rice. I'll give you an example of Brazil. Brazil implemented what they call the Embrapa program, 1 and 2. And it was harnessed on 4 key areas. Massive investment into research. That was first. Without research, they don't do anything. So government, private sector invested heavily into research into the agriculture sector. Over the past 30 years, Brazil tripled their production across all the major commodities without trickling in the increase of land. So when you talk about increase of land in the country, as against all the climate change and all the things we are having, we need to look at it. What is our seed population per hectare? How many seeds are we putting in terms of rice compared to how many seeds they are putting in per hectare in Vietnam and Thailand? The reason why they are tripling their production. That is 1. 2, what Brazil did was look at the market first. After research, they look at the market. What is the market demand? Where are the markets? Which variety was the taste demand? So what they did was that they took out the cost. So for instance, our fertilizer, our agrochemicals, we import them, warehouse, move it to distributor, move it to retail. Those value chain and logistics in Ghana, when we did the food price builder for Bank of Ghana last year, that was 27 to 3% on the food cost on the market. They took it out. Ask yourself, why is it that they are able to bring rice to Ghana and it's still cheaper than what we produce here? Take out so many value chain actors, both post-production and after production, and make the cost of food on the market affordable for the Ghanaian. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morrison. Yes.
Thank you, sir. My name is Yao Adupoku, Chair for Competitive African Rice. That's an affiliate of the ECOWAS Rice Observatory by the heads of states of ECOWAS. I head the Ghana chapter, which is the umbrella body for everything rice in Ghana, the zoning with the government and institutions like you. We are on the ground from research through farmer to distributors. And so whatever comes across in the rice sector, we are actively involved. Thank you for organizing this, for us to also highlight some of the challenges and what we think could be positive in the sector. We talk from 1960 to 2025, and the yield is there for all to see that we are just past zero, and we will continue because there's no listening ear when you tell the truth. This is what is keeping us where we are. For example, linkage between research and farm is not well defined. That is why you don't see certified seed being used by farmers. It's not only prices, but the awareness that certified seed will increase yield is not actually being drawn into the farmer head. Then when you come to lab preparation, forget it. It's not non-existent. So even service providers who are bringing in equipments like combine harvesters are afraid of areas to go because the land will not be friendly to the combine harvester, so it breaks down. This contributes to the low yield. Now look at our yield per the hectare. We are talking about 5.5. We should same land, not land from elsewhere. But now our yield is what? Irrigation areas we can get 5. But even then, where it is controlled, the haphazard way we go about it does not bring the yield forward. And this contributes to the high prices that is on the market. Currently, as I'm speaking to, the importers have swamped the country, and there's no way we are able to sell the Ghana rice. The president of the Rice Millers Association is here, Mr. Dako is here, the farmers is here, and they all will tell you the same story. We are thinking about how we are going to sell rice this year. The truth is we can't. So this man is in trouble. The man from Buffer Stock, the 100 million will not even at Accra. So whatever he has to do to get more, he has to do it. Now we talk about glut. There's no glut in Ghana. That is the truth. We eat over 2 million metric tons of milled rice, not paddy, milled rice. When I did the computation based on Ms. Buffer Stock's minimum offering price, it is about 25 billion cedis, which is over $2 billion of rice that is eaten in Ghana. What we produce that we call glut is not glut. It is because we are afraid of the harmattan coming in. It will destroy the rice harvest. So the rice farmer quickly wants to push the rice away to the miller. And the miller is afraid because they don't have the resources. So they take the little they can. The rest, which is left in the hands of the farmer, is destroyed by the harmattan and the bushfire. That's why we cry, glut, glut, glut. Even when we are able to take, look at the numbers. The numbers will tell you that we are not able to mill over 500,000 metric tons. We are not. And the 500,000 metric tons, because we are not doing good practices, we don't get even 60%. We are getting 55%. Thanks to the government, we were able to go to the Vietnam and the Thailands and learn what they were doing there. They get 70% recovery, while Ghana get 53 average. I did an experiment and I got 68 because I listened and I came and experiment. And then I realized that it is only to do with the moisture level and then the dryness of it. Now, the matter is this. When the farmer harvests, there's no storage for the meal rice, for the paddy rice. Paddy rice is not like maize or millet or sorghum. It is like in 3 years, rice is like that. It's like a woman that you are courting. If you don't put it in a very good area, it will destroy. Maize doesn't care. Millet doesn't care. But rice, the paddy does. So you need to give it a special environment. This cannot be done. I'm repeating, it cannot be done by the farmer. They don't have the resources. So this is where government intervention should be. 2 areas that we can look at. Hermetic storage system or silos. these are the areas that will preserve the rice for a period of time so that the miller can easily go to the bank and take money to mill throughout the year. This is not done. So whatever talk we do, the glut will be there because we can't mill. Out of the 1.4 million, Mofa is saying, if we are lucky, we'll be able to mill only 400. The 1 million will be sold to the Nigerians. They do parboil. Ghana don't eat parboil. So if it doesn't go to Nigeria, the farmer is in trouble. And the miller has only 4 months in the year. Starting from October, by January, they finish milling because the remaining rice is all dry up. They cannot mill. They don't have the storage to preserve it to go forward. These are the critical areas. I hope Dr. Boache is listening because I know when you do, people hear. So that we look at it and then come back again. If these ones are addressed, the 1.4 million that we harvest, we will be able to mill it even if it's 100,000 tons per month. By the end of the year, we've milled 12,000. We've milled 1.2 million. So the surplus will be minimal, but it cannot be done. So this year, as I'm talking to you, price has fallen sharply, 50% across board. Last year, we bought the rice, the paddy rice, at 550, 600 per 100 kg bag, or 6,000 per ton. Today, farmers have started begging for 350 or 3,500 a ton. We are not going, because where are we going to sell? Buffer, get ready. That is where we are going, because the market will not accept our rice. Because of pricing. That is all. And you see, when you talk about Brazil, Vietnam, or Thailand, they are able to preserve even the milled rice so that by the time it gets here, their expired rice is why we are eating and we call rice. We eat aromatic rice, better pepper, but they eat sticky rice or starchy rice, which we don't like because it's fresh. And our rice is fresh. So when we go to the market, Ghana more they own one peche. But that is what they eat. When they leave it for 1 year and it has expired, then it comes to Ghana as premium rice. And we pride ourselves in eating expired rice and call ourselves that we are sophisticated. This is the problem we are facing. If we look into all these things, I am sure that the 2030 target we have set ourselves, we will be able to reach that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Your perspectives have been quite insightful. Okay, who next?
Hello,
Yes.
everybody. Good morning.
Hello.
Thank you, IFS, for putting this together. I think, I already mentioned my name. My name is Michael Darko, and I am the president of the Rice Millers Association of Ghana. So we have some members who are in those two regions where the studies were done. I think the issues on rice millers and from farming to the milling to the consumer have been documented. And I wanted to mention two things. National food buffer stock is a very practical example of how we can allow farmers and millers to have a definite market, which will encourage more young people to go into farming. I'm a trained electrical engineer. I'm also an investment banker who has practiced on Wall Street, and I feel like the model, as long as rice farming and milling and agriculture works in this country, we will encourage more people to diversify and go into it, which is what we need. The reason why NAFCO, our National Food Buffer Stock, makes sense is that, just like he mentioned, whether it's gold board or cocoa board, if you guarantee a certain pricing regime, at the end, the market and entrepreneurs will go into that industry. You mentioned why, you were asking a question as to why people are not buying Ghana rice. Ghana is still an economy where price makes a difference. So due to the recent factors where we've had the cedi becoming stronger and the importers using various means of bringing and dumping into the country, including, as we know, a lot of them include tax evasion, some of the things that happen at the ports and stuff like that. They are severely selling rice in the market at prices at which a Ghanaian local production that has gone through land development, land preparation, buying fertilizer will never be able to compete. So at the government level, we need security. I am also invested on the where GHOne and a few other entities have created something called the Left Bank irrigation project, where we have invested significant money to grow rice on irrigated lands. I had to spend all of my Monday morning sitting at the IGP to talk about security issues instead of actually being on the farm or doing work in the office, because the locals, and in terms of how the project was executed, are fighting with the investors who are supposed to be trying to get their yield of their rice up. We are spending a lot of time fighting and fighting and arguing over land compensation issues, which we've been discussing with MOFA and GHOne and some of these other state agencies for a very long time. And it's causing a lot of issues in a World Bank funded project. So again, I'd like to bring this to the attention of IFS and those of you over here to make sure that when we put some of these projects together, the right things are done right from the beginning, so that investors, millers, farmers, everybody will have their peace of mind to concentrate on. We are competing with people who are doing 10 tons per hectare. I can spend half of my day and half of my week dealing about people coming to my farm to fight with my workers and people who are smuggling in the same product and all of that. So we have a lot of issues. The main three things I want to concentrate on that. We need to establish a relationship with the National Food Buffer Stock, establish price, and then make sure that we encourage and deter the people who are not legitimately bringing rice into the country, such that the local production can increase, and we shall be able to get more accredited mills to do what we need to do, and make sure that all Ghanaians eat Ghana rice at the 100% level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One more comment for this round. Okay, please hold on, Madam.
All right.
Dr. Boakye has a few things to say before.
Hello. Yeah, largely there were contributions but I have to go through. What is recurring is high prices of local rice in all the contributions. In fact, it's very important. I think the last speaker said Ghanaians are very price conscious, and income levels are limited, and you want to have a very good use of your money. And for that matter, when you go to the market to buy rice, you're going to look for the price. And if foreign rice that is being marketed as the best, as very aromatic, as better price, definitely you're going to go for it. The difference in price is simple. Somebody is producing somewhere. There's so much governmental support. From import, land preparation to everywhere, irrigation is being supported by the government. But over here, the private sector has been asked to take over. Government of Ghana merely playing the giving the enabling environment. It's not going to work, because the agricultural sector that rice dwells in is a very critical sector. We talk about food security. Well, when you go to the United States of America, for instance, yes, food security, but they see food as a national security issue. And for that matter, governmental support is needed. It's very critical. So if you have this governmental support, subsidies, facilitation, everything direct, contrary to the SAP, Structural Adjustment Program's recommendations, we were directly involved as a government, but the government is washing its hands out of it. You gotta go back to the active role. We are not saying the government has to play every role, but it has to play an active role while the private sector is doing its part. They will not only increase quantity, but it will bring down the price so that you can be competitive. Those in the private sector, the rice sector, are telling us that local rice is good. But if the price is high and my poor man, I'm going to afford. And the marketing strategy of the importers is better than yours. They are selling to us that they are bringing better rice, aromatic. If you are cooking it, somebody passing at the back smells it. And so we have to do better marketing. Even over there, the government involvement is also needed, the marketing component. So all these things are recommendations, but I think the central issue is price. Throwing away and throwing out what you call consumers. And if you subsidize inputs, provide incentives, tax reliefs, and actively involved in seed provision, fertilizer provision, all these issues we are raising will be addressed. And that is exactly what IFS is calling for. So we thank you very much for contributing and adding to what we have seen. You are the people on the field, and you know better. But it looks like whatever we are talking about, you are also seeing it. And together, let's fight this fight. Thank you. Maybe more questions can come.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Boachi. Madam. Oh, Madam, so she'll speak and then you, please.
Pacho, good morning. Say afternoon, sir. Pacho P, me cabro for a meche. It's Mr. Sound Tibrofra, so be no on teacher, on chilo.
Cause your pen in
Yo, me case free Yankodo Farmers Association, ye dear home Akobo AGI. A moon, ye domo, ye dobby, ewa boase coach crum, ye dobby, ewa tepa, ye dobby, ewa tatale, ye dobby, ewa iribi, e kono, and yen fear a dudum mieno. Na adwuma ye ne se mebu no mo ne adwuma me ne kofa bai me ne nam nkrase na me bobo ma no me kasa nyina supupro hine me adentia wo de mu kodwuma e se ebibimu ono a ebibimu na e ma me ne papa no de atete afiti kwala brem ebibimu ono a enye hwe utim de ye right sweater bibia wo de ebibimu
They'll get them outside. Okay. All right. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. I'm called Bismarck Usunoti.
Yeah.
I'm the executive director for the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana.
Okay.
I think my colleagues have asked for made all the comments, so I want to pass. But I just wanted to ask one question from the presenter. That in the comparison that he did between Ghana, Vietnam, and Thailand, did look at the farming system, which was most in the respective countries? Do we have more of the smallholder farmers who are producing a chunk of the rice in the countries, either in Vietnam or Thailand, or do we have the commercial farmers doing so? It would be good to do that because in Ghana, there's a trend going where you are having a lot of the politicians taking over all the farms in the country at the expense of smallholder farmers. If you go to, for instance, the Fumbisi area, large tracts of those lands now have been taken over by the politicians, where the smallholder farmers are now displaced. And it is feeding to a narration that we have to focus more on the commercial farmers. So it's been to know what the feedback from those two countries are with regards to the farming system that dominates and produce most of the rice for their country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, yes, thank you very much. Before I invite Dr. Boakye to answer your question and then invite Chairman to offer his own remarks, I'd like to announce that we've got packed lunch, and we also made the effort to procure some locally grown rice, which we're going to distribute 5 kilograms each, so that we can turn all of us into ambassadors of local rice. So that's right. It's a real rice party. It's a real local rice party. And for people like me who, are guilty of not consuming local rice, it's my chance to, to eat local rice. So, Dr. Boakye.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fred Kukubo actually passed comments, and then I think his comments are well taken. The skill set, the extension system is almost non-working in the country. It has to be activated in terms of mailing and everything. The extension service people employed by the government can help us. Mechanization fit. It is very critical, and this is a problem is experienced almost everywhere, whereby machines are imported and they do not fit the local environment, especially in Ghana over here. And so that's why we recommended that perhaps the Rice Development Board being proposed to be set up has to help us produce these machines to fit local environment. Because at times, these things are so technical and non-adaptive to the extent that they come and sit down and they're useless. And so you have to, in fact, in Vietnam, even some important machines are recharged, are remade to fit local environment. And we can adopt that. Okay, of course, the irrigation facilities have to be brought to life. Our team identified some irrigation facilities that are not working and is adding to it. But the real question that you have received for today is the countries we compared with. What farming system are they practicing? In fact, we went into this research thinking that Vietnam, for instance, is doing so well because of commercial farming. Yes, commercial farming is very useful and it helps to improve yield, but the average land holding for the average commercial for average rice farming in Vietnam is about 3 hectares, which is similar in Ghana here. So it is not commercial farming that is helping Vietnam to achieve that high yield. Average of 3 hectares like Ghana here, 2-3 hectares, is the size of land the average farmer is holding in Vietnam. But the difference is what we saw. The programs of the government to support these smallholder farmers, which differ from the governmental programs in Ghana. If you can learn from what the government does over there, we can achieve the results they are also getting. And what is even more important is land. Since independence, we have been talking about land. A champion's operation Feed Yourself, land was a very critical thing because we wanted mass production, organized people, but access to land was a problem. So we have to look at it. We cannot think that in a country that we are looking for development, a few people will hold land and the mass do not have it. That doesn't work anyway. It's not only these rice producing countries. A country like South Korea in the 60s did a very massive land reform, redistributing land, and it helped them not only in terms of agriculture, but their industrialization process. And so land reform is critical. We cannot allow few families and chiefs to hold the land, whereby those who actually want to work on the field do not have land and still complain that we don't have development. Something got to be done. And so that's answer to your question. And so the MC.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Boakye. So now, Mr. Chairman, I hand over to you, to take us to the end with your own.
Thank you very much. I've left my notes because you realize you will learn more from people who are actively involved in the industry, and that's what I have learned. Mama, we see Rebecca Boakye. Wonderful. What I picked from her is that we only zero in on rice. It is for every commodity. Every commodity. So if you talk over, about 300 acres, is that what she said, of sweet potatoes, tiger nuts, and no market. Will we have a cocoa industry from the time Tete Kwashi introduced cocoa in the 1800s if it were not cocoa board? All the things we're talking about, cocoa board is the lifeblood of our cocoa industry. And there is the Cocoa Research Institute established in 1938 that has done thorough research and produced technology that supports the cocoa industry. People who want to enter into the agrochemical industry, you first have to submit your application to Cocoa Board, then they will send the product to Greek for testing. And it is on the recommendation of the testing that will enable Cocoa Board to ask you to go into the business of importing, or rather bringing your agrochemical for the use by the cocoa farmers. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, the 1970 to 79 scenario that we saw, Operation Feed Yourself was not just about backyard gardening. Normally, we simplistically put it as if it was an event. But we lived through it. Under that policy of self-reliance, that was the basis, self-reliance. And during the exchange control period, where you could not just walk to the Forest Bureau and change your cedis into foreign exchange, you needed to apply for import license. Then letters of credit will be established based on what could be given you to import raw materials or otherwise for your industry or for your factory. Under the policy of General Champon, may he so rest in peace, he deserves a place of honor. If you wanted to go into farming in any form, he provided all the necessary inputs or support. We're talking about state support, and it's as if during that era or even previous era, private enterprise wasn't thriving. Indeed, it was during those periods that private enterprise thrived the most. And many people who are old, our uncles or daddies, will tell you it was during that era that Ghanaians became rich. We know of farmers who bought combined harvesters from credit taken from Agri Development Bank, because Agri Development Bank was set up to support credit for agricultural enterprise. In fact, they had over 40% of their portfolio purely for financing agriculture. And at the same time, the Soil Research Institute, as you see it over there, was tasked with government subvention to provide soil suitability support or report for anybody who will approach them for that particular report that you needed to get your credit application processed by ADB. And field technicians and scientists were paid from government subvention, so you didn't need to pay for that. You only needed to pay for the services on the field. That was during the General Champon era. We're talking about the cropping or farming systems, irrigation dams under then Irrigation Development Agency, IDA. We've changed it to GIDA Authority with little output. And we had all irrigation dams in active support in terms of water supply. The irrigated land area was apportioned to the farmers, the indigenous farmers, and water, which was the essential, or which is the essential commodity, was provided through furrow, the water running through furrows. So you have your 1 acre or 1 hectare. And so if you went to the Tono irrigation site and you saw tomatoes, at times rather no market, Golinga irrigation, etc. So General Champon's Operation Feed Yourself provided capacity and enabled capability in production. So it's not just only that. We had a Grains Development Board. We have the Cotton Development Board. Indeed, there was a ginnery for processing cotton bolls into lint in Wa. So the factories that were into textiles had their cotton from Ghana. Factories were everywhere. Today, please, can you imagine, or really you know what is happening to the coconut industry? Articulators go to production centers in the central, western, and eastern region and bring coconut to Accra. All that we turn that product or produce into is to crack. If you are the type that wants to, in Ghana we say akpenato. Akpenato is the one that the flesh is a bit hard, so you take the drink and then you also chew the pulp. Other than that, those who just want the fresh, juicy water, and you see that produce, turn into heap of husk. That is what is happening to the coconut industry. In the years past, we had a coconut mill at Esiama that just transformed into cooking oil. Today, all that we do with the vast acres of coconut, and the coconut production is high, is just to bring tons of articulators to Accra or urban centers, crack, then you put the husk aside. The husk, even disposal, is a problem. And so we've gone through it before, how that collapsed with the demise of the Achampon regime is what is still a matter that we have to ponder over. And indeed, if we could go back and revisit it, and that comes to the political class. The political class cuts across. Whether we are really marching forward or we are marching into danger. I met a young man about a month ago when I visited the Weta irrigation dam. And irrigation dams are being rehabilitated by JICA. They finished with Otreko on the way to Winneba. They've done Weta. I don't know what's happening to what has happened to the other dams that you're talking about. But all the irrigation dams that were constructed to support local production, they are all down. So we're talking about input cost. And that was what the state did as an intervention to support production. So we've been through it before. If we revisit that story or what happened, I think we can address many of the problems. The Brazilian ambassador had left. I had a very humbling experience when I went to the World Environmental Summit in 2010 in Brazil, Fortaleza. From South African Airways to Johannesburg. The usual thing, the plane takes off, then you can fasten your seatbelt, then the air crew will come around, give us something to drink, then they bring the menu. What do you really want? We have beef, we have chicken, we have fish, or you are vegetarian, then what do you want to come with it? Rice or potato? It was the same with South African Airways from Johannesburg to Sao Paulo. The 3-hour, 20 minutes flight from Sao Paulo up north to Fortaleza, when they asked the same thing, and I said I wanted sweet potato, when they brought the food, it was cassava, well cut, well seasoned. Of course, it was cocoa or coffee. Then, any dessert, they brought kube cake. The pudding was with grated kube. That was it. In the 5-star hotel in Fortaleza during the conference, coffee break, you go, it is cocoa, it is coffee, it is tea locally produced. In breakfast, those who wanted to go heavy, you see grilled tilapia, gari foto. You will be amazed. Roasted plantain, everything indigenous. Everything indigenous. So where did this change of taste come from? We were in secondary school when we were being fed in the university. We were also being fed with local rice. And up to now, look, when we go for our Sunday omotuwo, do we know whether it's local or imported? So where did this come from? So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Bobabuachi, your paper is like a course. Do we call it RISE 304? If we were to take it for 13 weeks, we wouldn't finish the syllabus. Very comprehensive. And maybe we need a graduate level course, RISE 604. We want to thank you for the well done work. Let's give him a round of applause. Wonderful. And the participants. And it's just not a coincidence that a former governor who presided over monetary policy, and then later a finance minister who presided over fiscal policy, and after leaving these two honorable roles, is championing this cause. And honorable, maybe we need to carry this matter further. That's maybe your contribution to the advancement of Ghana. And we want to thank you for coming, and we wish to meet again, whereas during the presentation of RISE 604. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kofi will say a few words on the RISE we're going to make available to you. But
thank you. This one, I want the media to capture it. Because I know most of you will think this is an imported rice. This is not imported. This is farmed and milled in Ghana. When we went round, we have a lot of milled rice, well packaged from OT. We have a J-Love Essence rice, well packaged. We have Jester rice in, I think that's South Tongue. This is coming from Central Tongue. I'll mention the name. This is Striker Gold. We have Janice rice, which is for my younger brother, Fred Kukubo. He has over 500 acres of land. Yeah, 500 acres of land that he's working on. Fred, stand up, Dr. Dufo want to see you. Yeah. And aside that, he's also an aggregator. That means there are some outgrower farmers that supply paddy rice to him. The reason why we couldn't get all those rice to assemble, because some are in short supply, then because the distance, for example, the JLAV is all the way from Oti, so we went for the nearest and available one. There's Spring Agro in Central Tong in Adidome. They have warehouses and some shops also in Accra. So this is to let the media begin to promote, because nobody is born with taste. The moment we start promoting our local rice, we will all acquire the taste for local rice. So, yeah, and let me emphasize, Ghana rice is aromatic rice. Okay, the imported ones are not. It's only Ghana rice is the aromatic rice because of our soil texture. It's the soil that contributes to the aroma and the rest. So Ghana, we have the best rice. When you eat it, you will know. Please don't eat it and keep quiet. Eat it and come back to the media. That's what the media say. All of you will have it, so that you can promote it. For at least a month, please keep the conversation on local rice. IFS has, the whole day is not only just a presentation or research on rice. Actually, as Dr. Said or Z. Leslie, is rice party. So the idea is to promote local rice, not just to talk about it. So IFS has bought this rice to be distributed to all the attendees here, especially the media, because you are the voice. So when you are leaving, the rice will be at the gates. They will give it. All of you have this 111 pack, so that you can eat it, taste it, then go back to the media and speak about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And on that note, I want to thank you all for attending this.
So, yes. So, Fred, you are here. So they say, what can you buy from for a Janice rice? This one, I think they have all their details. Yes, they have their details on the distance. I think this one, they have a warehouse at Spinters. So Fred, where is your shop? Tama. So they have all their shops also in Tama. Jester also have a shop in that. I didn't also have a shop in Accra. Then the JLove Essence, that's OT. We are yet to be aware whether they have a shop in Accra. So there are, and aside that, there are many of our local rice, a lot of them. We were amazed at the number of local rice, and they are all packaged nice and they taste excellent. So please, all of you, this is it what you call it, 5 kg? Okay, so we have enough for everybody here. IFS has invested enough in this rice for everybody here to pick a bag home. I think the sack, that's the 25, is it 25 kg? Yeah, I think it's 425. It ranges from 370 to 425, depending on the what you're buying. So it's still affordable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We draw the curtains down on our event. Thank you for coming.